Just summing up the finals, and I was trying to think who would be the player of the two finals, because of course, Jack McCaffrey was brilliant the first day, scored 1-3, then he does his hamstring before half time, even though he wasn't as impactful. Brian Howard unbelievable the first day, maybe not quite as impactful the second day. Clifford great the second day, fairly good the first day. Who would you say was the player of the finals combined?
It's probably the fact that we're having the debate kind of shows up the way it goes with drawn games and replays. You sometimes see guys, I'm thinking like Sean O'Shea and Dean Rock both hit 10 points each, and then teams obviously looking to target both of them in the second game, and then guys like Kieran Kilkenny, Conor Callan, Paul Mannion maybe quite by their high standards in the drawn game, and then they upped it again. I'd say probably on the Kerry side I would say Paul Geaney consistently over the 140, 150 minutes. I know he didn't score the first game, and I know a lot of people talk about he missed a penalty and he missed a goal chance in the first half, but I thought he worked very hard and it was kind of reflective of his role this year. He was coming a lot deeper, he was kind of helping out in defence a good bit, and he created a couple of scores. And then yesterday he added the scoring touch. Now I think maybe missed a couple in the second half, but still kicked 4 points from play. Just thought he was really, really good, and I think he showed he's one of the most experienced players in that team, but he's probably their biggest leader now.
Mike Fitzsimons also, and I know Clifford got a couple of points at him. I think a few of them, what could anyone have done? Once the ball is passed into his hand, it's going over the bar.
I think once that ball comes in and it hops in front of Clifford, once he gets it, it's damage limitation.
Because even when Fitzsimons had him in the first or the second half in the first game, there was one time he defended him unbelievably well, and Clifford kept twisting, turning, and eventually knocked over a point.
Yeah, that was the second point from play.
Yeah, that I think overall Fitzsimons, he's probably not far off.
No,
8 out of 10 between both games,
and he produced initially when I saw it in real time his challenge on Stephen O'Brien yesterday in the first half. I thought maybe he'd shouldered him in the back, but
to stop the goal chance,
it was an absolutely brilliant hit, perfectly timed. Because at that stage, if he got past that last man, that last cover, it was 1-on-1 with Clucks, and he might have a chance to sidestep it. And ultimately, Kerry probably didn't have as many goal chances as the first game. Maybe a 2 or 3 was the big one came to O'Brien in the second half. But I felt like that was a key moment. I mean, if Kerry go in at half time, tails up, hadn't got a goal, it would have been a huge boost for them. So yeah, he was brilliant in both games. And you'd have to say Conor Callan as well, probably the other contender, another cooler man. 4 points in play yesterday, kind of always looked threatening.
Set up 4 more.
Was it 1 point I think in the drawn match? But was fouled a couple of times for Dean Rock freeze. I think definitely won in the first half of that game. So consistently over the 2 games, probably maybe your Fitzsimons, O'Callaghan and Geaney, and then other guys reached massive heights at different stages over the course of the 2 matches.
I'd probably just about give it to Geaney actually, because they were swimming against the tide in that game yesterday. It kind of highlighted to me that this is what would have happened the first day ultimately as the second half wore on if Dublin didn't go to 14 men. I think that's kind of the reality of it. So for Geaney to play like that, I thought was outrageous. If you were to look at where did Kerry get let down in this replay, would it be unfair to put it at any particular one door? I mean, they didn't really press up on the kick-out, so the gamble wasn't there. They won all their own, but did they win them in the end?
It seems like what Peter Keane was alluding to yesterday in a press conference. They just got completely spooked by the goal that Jack McCaffrey scored, the way they pressed up on that kick-out, and their attitude was to reverse strategy. I think they possibly could have gone for it a little bit more.
Is that losing your nerve a small bit? Because
slightly, but I suppose it goes back to what we talk about, teams over-analysing in between the drawn game and the replay. It's the classic, do you stick or twist with what did work for you so well in the drawn game? Do you try and make changes? So they tried that. I'd argue they probably got more out of their forward line in a scoring sense. Sean O'Shea they actually scored less, but Geaney and Clifford were impacting far more, and then you Sean O'Shea chipping in as well. I thought Stephen O'Brien's kind of doing those driving, surging runs that he's been doing all summer. Then they probably were under a good bit more pressure at the back. Guys like I thought Gavin Crowley was brilliant in the drawn game. I thought Thomas Sullivan had done a good job. They were just under a lot more pressure yesterday because that trio of Kilkenny, O'Callaghan and Mannion. I was looking at in the first half yesterday, you take those 5 forwards, Kilkenny, Mannion, O'Callaghan, Geaney and Clifford. They had 5 points between them in the whole of the drawn game. They had 14 points between them in the first half yesterday. So that was reflective of the quality of score taking yesterday. It was a huge increase and an improvement on the drawn game. So that was probably maybe where Kerry just didn't get as much joy. Their defence was under a fair bit more pressure. maybe it's unfair, but just didn't get the scoring impact off the bench. Thought Killian Spillane looked lively. Thought Tommy Walsh won a lot of ball, but he was kind of winning it, out in the corner, where I think a couple of times he was winning kind of the corner of the Cusack and Hill. Dublin probably glad to keep him out there and kind of frustrate them. So yeah, kind of fine margins, but actually I don't think Dublin got a score off their bench either, which is quite unusual for them. 2 games in a row, considering
Diarmuid Connolly probably should have
or
at least engineered
chance, or even squared it. I think Con was alongside him.
Did you think his performance was good, bad, or just a mix of both? It kind of felt like there was a couple of brilliant things and a couple of really rusty things.
Yeah, just probably a bit of a mix. Like that assist for the Kilkenny score was absolutely superb. I think he set up another one as well. I think he was turned over on one occasion
and did a foul straight after.
And then he did carry that ball, all the way in. For the last one, and then Shane Ryan saved it, but I suppose they did get a point off it from, I think, Rock converted to 45.
Yeah.
Probably a mixed bag, but at the same time, his kind of very presence on the pitch, gave Kerry another thing to think about, and I think it was just part of an attack that, just carried more threat yesterday. Dublin's did in the drawn game, where I thought they'd been very reliant on Rock and Jack McCaffrey coming from deep. They got far more out of their forwards yesterday.
Jack McCaffrey's had a very colourful few years in finals, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's really strange. He's kind of gone from the highs of man of the match the last day. I think he's got another man of the match as well. He was watching from the stands in 16. He did his cruciate in 17. I think he went off at half time in 15 with injury. So it's kind of highs to lows. And I mean, if you'd said yesterday, I suppose it just shows how things change between drawn games and replays. If you said Jack McCaffrey's going to go off at half time, Kerry would be pretty happy that they kept him scoreless, that's their job done. But
especially when so much of their plan and so much of the talk around this game is how do you stop Jack McCaffrey?
Yeah.
So he was kind of neutralised a little bit. Well, of course, from half time on by injury.
But I suppose it's interesting. He got 1-3 from playing the drawn game. Dublin still got 1-2 from their defence yesterday. Davy Byrne coming forward to kick a point. Okay, James McCarthy, we're used to him scoring, and I suppose he was technically playing midfield. And then obviously, I'd argue probably the most unlikely first goal scorer in All-Ireland football final. It's over the last while in Eoin Murchan.
That was, afterwards in the press conference, Jim Gavin spoke about that being a set play. Now, obviously you can't account for David Moore punching a ball forward and him coming onto it from the centre back position as he was in, but the movement you can see.
Yeah, I think that's what he was referring to.
You can see Connolly going out to the corner flag. You can see possibly Rock moving out of the way and Con coming out to the left wing, and it just left the sea wide open. I think most teams would have an idea that if we win the ball, this is the movement that's going to happen to find open space.
Yeah, well, it's I think the level of planning at inter-county level. I mean, I suppose we have some idea of it, but I think the amount of rehearsals and the amount of, I suppose, kind of plotting and planning for this stuff.
It's 1-2. That's 1-2 from the 4 restarts between the 2 games.
Yeah, and that's obviously something they've completely targeted. But the Kerry players kind of reacted maybe a small bit too late. I think it was Tyke Morley was coming across at the very, very end, and he wasn't able to get close to, I suppose, lay a hand on him. And the flip side then was in the first half when Morley himself was through. Dublin managed to lay a hand on him. When they're quite happy to concede a tap over point from Sean O'Shea.
For a second there, it was a case of Con pulled him back. Is he going to get a black card? Because it wasn't a black card foul, but for a second the player does go down onto the ground, and then maybe the referee sees it a certain way, gives him a black card. Then you see him talking to Michael Fitzsimons, and you're thinking maybe he's going to give him one when he getting the tick. If Dublin lost either of those players, the one guy that they thought could mark Clifford from the first day, the kind of focal point of their attack, because who would have gone full forward? Maybe Mannion, does it suit him as much? That would have been crucial if they got that decision wrong. Yeah, I
think the Fitzsimons loss would have been huge. I think Kilkenny and Mannion were both on song. Costello might have come in earlier, or maybe Bernard Brogan or someone like that.
Yeah.
Even obviously Con is one of the leading players, but I think they maybe might have been able to cope a little bit better. But yeah, the loss of either of them would have been an absolutely huge blow. And I suppose a lot of people were kind of giving out that it denied a clear goal scoring threat, but technically by the rule it was the correct decision to give it. It was obviously the wrong player that he gave it to Fitzsimons, when you could see in the afterwards that it was Con did the actual first initial kind of pull back with a hand. But to be fair to Conor Lane, it was the right punishment, but just to the wrong man.
I feel like James McCarthy looked like a player who was carrying a knock or two. Like the first half, several uncharacteristic errors, drove into the game late on, got a nice score and what have you. Imagine the miles on the clock for the likes of James McCarthy. Cluxton I know is in the goals, but Fitzsimons Michael Darren McCauley who came on, McManaman. It must be the toll on their bodies at this stage. I don't know how much longer they could do this for.
Yeah, I think James McCarthy is the only one to have started all 7 of the finals this decade as an outfield player.
Yeah.
Obviously Cluxton has, but like Cian O'Sullivan and Philly kind of dropped out of the equation from the drawn game. But yeah, there's a lot of kind of miles on that clock, and it kind of feeds into, we reached the end of the decade, and this was what everyone was kind of talking about, has been talking about in kind of recent weeks, that if Dublin were to complete the 5 in a row, I don't think James McCarthy is going to go, but you definitely feel the sense that there's going to be change to that Dublin setup now over the next while. There's a lot of guys, some of those guys are on the road for a long time. The flip side then is that when you see someone like Eoin Murchan scoring a goal, the evolution has been happening over the last couple of years.
Are we doing him a disservice not putting him in the player of the finals combined, considering how good he was when he came on the first day also? And I'd give him probably Dublin's man of the match in this game.
Yeah, he was brilliant, and it kind of like that stat that went out last week about the impact guys making an All-Ireland final replay having not started. From Walter Walsh, Shane O'Donnell, Kieran Joyce and Fitzsimons were the 4 man of the matches of this decade across hurling and football. Murchan and Diarmuid O'Connor were the 2 guys brought in yesterday. Murchan had an absolutely massive impact. He's a really, really brilliant player. I think he was struggling a bit at the start of the year with injuries. But like, he's just so clever on the ball. Like, there was that spell in the second half where Dublin had the ball, I think it was about 2.5 minutes. He was heavily involved in that. There was one time he made a massive dash up in the middle of that move. It looked like he was going to go for a point. He just did a dummy solo. It was Jack Barry kind of fell for it, and he just recycled it again. He was really at the heart of it 3 or 4 times. And then obviously the finish for the goal, the defensive job he did. And yeah, I thought it was kind of maybe overlooked a bit. He did bring a lot of energy when he came on in the drawn match. So maybe a guy that was kind of maybe peripheral at the start of the year in the Leinster Championship, in and out of the team. He's had a massive impact when it really mattered.
Who would be your player of the year?
I think possibly Cluxton. I think it's a very tight call between a few Dublin players. I think, some years I think it's pretty obvious who's going to win it, but
I think Brian Howard's been brilliant over the course of the year. He mightn't get into conversation, but he's been brilliant.
Like, I think
at times, Con at times. Con a lot, obviously.
Yeah, McCaffrey, Paul Mannion, I think back to the Kildare game this year, I thought Mannion was absolutely outstanding. I know it's a long while ago now, but like, I think it was 7 from 7 was his stat in points, shots on play that day, I think there's a lot of Dublin players with strong claims, but I think this was a year Cluxton made big saves throughout. Okay, you can argue yesterday maybe the Stephen O'Brien shot was kind of straight at him.
But there was a couple of high balls that he diffused that could have been real problematic.
Yeah, I just think he's been absolutely excellent. But I think it's going to be a pretty tight call between a good few of those Dublin lads. I don't think it's as obvious maybe as one as it has been in the last couple of years.
Do you think any Kerry player will get nominated? I think Paul Geaney deserves,
he did a good Munster Championships, so I think that will tell against him.
And there had been a question over his form for the last maybe season or so.
Well, he's got it back now. He was All-Star, 2-time All-Star in 16 and 17. He definitely went back slightly last year from that high standards, and David Clifford kind of became the main man in that attack. And then Munster Championship, I think he was quite enough against Clare, got sent off against Cork. But I think he really came alive in the Super 8s against Mayo and Donegal. The same against Tyrone, and I just think he's the kind of leader of that team, really. I know, again, we saw it yesterday, Kerry once again, non-playing captain, starting on the bench. Like, they keep with that traditional rule, just like Kilkenny do in hurling. But to me, it's kind of Geaney, Moore, and even Clifford are kind of the leaders of that team. Clifford at times has been outstanding. Sean O'Shea, like Stephen O'Brien, I suppose, was a contender after the Tyrone game. He had like 2 or 3 man of the matches. Probably didn't quite have that same level of impact. So I think it'll end up being 3 Dublin nominees. Yeah, and what about Clifford not making the Sunday game team of the year? Do you think he deserves to get in there? The competition is stacked. I think there's just so many hard calls. Maybe a lot of people are kind of looking at the 2 games, looking at Dublin Kerry, but I mean, Conor McShane was absolutely outstanding this year. And I think he has to get in. I think this year you can make strong cases for about 9 forwards, and there's only 6 positions.